when you create a file. Okay, so that being said, let's discuss how that works. So in this case, my UMask is 0, 2, 2. We'll ignore this first one. That's always 0. You don't ever really want to have, by default, you don't want to have the sticky bit set or the set ID or set GID. So we'll just focus on these. Okay, when we're computing the result file permissions from the UMask, so for a file, we're going to start with the default permissions 666. Because usually you don't want to have the default permissions on a file to ever be executable. So we're always going to start with this. So if I take 666, which is, remember, that's 424242, correct? Read, write, read, write, read, write. We're okay with that? So what the UMask says is it says, from these default permissions of 666, let's get rid of the write bit on each of those. And so now, the actual file permissions for a new file will be 644. That's what's left after we mask those write bits. So that's how I got 644 there. Let's say that the user mask is, let's try a different example. Let's try 0, 3, 6. Let's say that's my UMask. What will my corresponding file permissions be? Well, let's start off with 666. Or if you want to write it 424242, then you can do that.
Wouldn't it be 630?
Oh yeah. Okay, so now we didn't mask anything there, so 6. So this says mask what? The 2 and the 1.
Oh.
So we get rid of the 2. Now the 1 wasn't there, so let's ignore that. So 4, and this says mask the 4 and the 2. So the resultant permission down there would be 0. Now why would I ever set it 036? Well, because for a directory, these are when you're dealing with files. That's how I compute the resultant file permissions. But for a directory, you start with the permissions 777. So now if I do 036 down here, and remember 777 is just 421, 421, 421, right? Added together. And down here we're going to mask the 2 and the 1 and the 4 and the 2. So what's my result for new directories? We're not masking anything there. We're masking the 2 and the 1 here, so my resultant permission there would be a 4. And here we're masking the 4 and the 2, so we're just going to have a 1. I don't know why we have that. Yeah, that's how you calculate it. So, want me to do another example? I'm going to just temporarily set my UMask to, let's see here. We did 0, 2, 2. Let's do, 266. So now my UMask is 266. So for a file, let's come back here. For a file, we're going to start with 666. And what did I say? 266. Is that easy enough to figure out? Basically we've canceled those out, so it's going to be 400. Let's look at on a directory. On a directory, we're going to start with 777, 266. So we're going to, this is 4, 2, and 1, so we're going to mask that. So our result will be 5 here. What about here? 1, 1.
So does it apply to the directory or the form?
It applies to any new files that I create. So let's just see if that works then. So if say touch f.txt. Okay, so what is it? 266. So we said it should have 400, does it? So any new files that are created with that UMask will inherit, that's how we get our default permissions. If I create a new directory, D1, so D1, we're looking at this one. So did that give me what I thought? 511? Yep. So the UMask controls what the default permissions will be on a new file or directory when they're created. The 40, where? Here? It's just I'm saying, in our octal notation we said read and write, 4 and 2.
Okay.
That's what that means.
So do you have two different UMass for directories and files?
Nope.
Or
Nope. The UMask right now I have set as 0266, and that applies to both files and directories. You can't have distinct UMasks.
okay, but
And
files,
I'm sorry, I'm erasing this because I need to rewrite.
the files always start off at 666 and directories always start at 777.
Yep. Majority computation. One more. So another common one maybe that we'll see is 037 for the UMask. So if we start off with, I did 036 a second ago. Okay? So another way of writing this then is this has the read write, read write, read write. That's where we start with. And this says don't mask anything for the user, but this says mask read and execute for the user. Or no, sorry, write and execute, that's what 3 is. And this says mask read, write, and execute. So really, I'll mask that, and I'll mask read and write. And so now, what's my result? Well, I still have my original 6, now I have a 4, and now I have a 0. So if I set my UMask to 037, that's what the default permissions on the file would be. If we did it for a directory, we start with 777. Oh, and by the way, you might say, why can't I just subtract? It doesn't really work. Well, 6 minus 0 is 6, but 6 minus 3 is not 4, so you can't subtract. Get your numbers. Okay, so 037, this we know just carries right down. Remember 7 is just read, write, and execute. Read, write, and execute. This, what's the 3 again? Write and execute, and this is read, write, and execute. So we're saying mask the read, write, and execute, mask, write, and execute. So this would be a 4. Let's try it. So I'll temporarily set my UMask to 037, and then I'll create a new file. New txt, whatever. Is that what I should get for 037? Yeah. 640? And for a directory, is that what I'm supposed to get? 740, yes. So these are the default permissions on files that will be created. What questions do you have on UMask? It takes a while, but we're going to need to know how to do it. This is the #1 missed question on the test. Because I'm going to have you do it on the test. I'm going to do it on the assignment. I'm going to have you do it on like 3 assignments. But okay. So questions on that? There's not too many different UMasks I can do. Right? They're either going to be there's like 20 combinations maybe. But say what?
Set, you create a lot of those, it subtracts from that, and then whatever you get there, that would be the file.
Yeah, but don't subtract. I mean, you can't use mathematical subtraction.
It's more.
Yeah.
So, why is it useful?
Well, otherwise, how are you going to know what your file permissions should be when you create a new file? You can't just. I mean, where is it going to get the permissions from?
Oh, so this is default permission?
Yep. Anytime I create a new file, it's going to go look at my UMask first and decide what those permissions should be for the file. And I did, maybe that's a good one to go look at. I did record pretty much what we just did in this video. So if that's a sticky concept, I don't say sticky, but if that's a difficult concept, go back and look at that and review that again. Do some examples. So once again, it defines the permission bits that should be removed from newly created files and directories. Now, you saw me just type umask at the command line here. We will not do that.